Alright there, hello YouTube, and welcome to a brand new set of LightWave basic tutorials. I am Guardian from Capital Gear Gaming, and let's start off really quick here with a small issue a friend of mine had. I'm not sure exactly what the answer may be, but he told me that he was having basically this. Now, this might be a default setting that LightWave has. I'm not sure. But if you ever encounter this, the best bet is that it's probably because you have it set up here. Set it from wireframe to either wireframe shade, which would look like that, or flat shade or smooth shade. Weight shade, I guess, if you're kind of weird like that and you prefer weight shade, even though we're not into that just yet. Texture and then texture wire. I usually end up using texture or texture wire, and make sure you're looking at the side that actually exists, because right now it's a two-dimensional object. So yeah, we need to remember that we're dealing with a two-dimensional object. Oh, I screwed that up big time. I'll actually be going over what I'm doing right now to create a three-dimensional object from a two-dimensional object, and that's totally the wrong side, isn't it? I forgot these guys just need to be flipped. Right. It's because I extruded it the wrong direction. See, if I had gone this way, see? Now it does it properly. There we go. Alright, so let's see where I am. I believe last we left off, we've learned about how to create things. Everything works the same, so a disc would go like that. A cone goes like this. Cones are a bit weird, but that's how they go. The only ones that are weird when it comes to primitives are especially the capsules, because you'll notice that they kind of don't require a second menu, and they're very difficult to try and edit. I highly suggest you not using a capsule ever. If you can avoid it, just completely avoid it altogether, because even though it has these nice round segments here, as you can see, that'd be great for something like, say, a pill. I highly unrecommend using this because it's not only a waste of polygons, but there's an easier way of creating round edges without having that many polygons. Once again, always ignore my plugins if I have any extra plugins. For the most part, I shouldn't, because I usually only got plugins that would help me with modeling. And a couple of post-processing effects for layout. But anyways, we're going to deal with a basic box today, as usual. Keep it simple, and I'm going to show you how to do a few more. We're going to be going into modify here, and we're going to go a little bit into multiply, which is the interesting part of modeling. Multiply is what you use to actually take this object and make more out of it. For example, I can go like this, I can go like this, I can go like this. And there we go, we got a chimney. That was pretty quick. Anyways, it's not a very detailed chimney, but it works. I'm just gonna make a box. We'll also go over some of these basic menus that I'm entering here. Did it really just set it to one? Interesting. Okay, right. Sorry. So, we have our box. Let's center it. Center a view on it. Let's zoom out a bit. Alright, so let's get into modify. Modify is the interesting part. It can only be applied after you've made your commitment. So after you've created your object and then press space, that's when you can modify. So modify requires you to select a part of the object. So for example, a side, more than one side, a corner, or an edge. Now, here's where selection, having a knowledge of selection is very important. Now, what if I wanted to select this side and this side? However, I can't select them both at the same time, and doing this, well, see, I can't even figure it out where I am. Doing this is a bit tedious, because then I have to unselect that side. Because you'll notice if I try and select this side, then this side, I can't because I'm now unselecting things. Well, if you want to select more than one side, after you've already selected one thing, press and hold down Shift, and you can select more than one thing at a time without having to unselect first. Because normally you have to go like this to select more than one thing and hold it down, but you could just hold down Shift as well if you prefer. Anyways, let's get into proper modification here. As you can see, we have all of our things down here. We have move, drag, snap, drag, tweak, drag, net, magnet, shear. We won't get into a lot of these. Rotate, axis, rotate, bend, twist, stretch, size, transform, axis, scale. Transform is a new one to LightWave 11.5. It's an interesting one, even though it we can't really apply it to our current thing yet. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Tapper, jitter. Jitter's a pretty good one. Heat shrink I haven't played around with yet. It's another one that's new to LightWave 11.5. So let's go around with move first. So move is the shortcut key is T. So if we select a side, it requires a side to be selected, and press T, we can actually move that side around. Obviously do Control Z to undo any changes you made if you don't want them. So that's basically what T does. You can move without selecting anything, but then you're just moving the entire object. So, because it counts as everything being selected. Drag is quite the important one. It becomes really important when it comes to really complex sub-patched models, and sooner or later I'll go into sub-patch modeling, but we won't just yet. Basically, move allows you to move single points, and there is a difference between taking this move there's a difference from taking a move tool like this and just taking individual points like that. For one, it's quicker. Two, it's a little bit more accurate as well. And for three, well, honestly, it's just quicker. That's really just what matters. I guess there isn't much of a third reason. I mean, you could count the fact that it sort of... Here, I'll show you. It does... I suppose it's sort of... It's sort of the only tool that actually works in the perspective view. All the other tools don't really work properly in it, and there is a good reason as to why. When we get into modeling human heads, we will be dealing with sub-patch modeling, and we will be dealing with the drag tool, which is this current tool that we're using to drag points around, because that's what's going to be what the main aspect of our character's head. So as you can see, it's right here. Underneath move, we have drag. It's also control or shift T. No, it's not. Don't believe me on that. It's control T. Shift T is to tessellate your object. You don't want that just yet. Snap drag is a really good one, but it's not exactly useful at this level. Yeah, I don't want to worry about that too much. Tweak is a new one from LightWave 11. It's really cool, because you can sort of go nuts with it. Apparently, it's a tool that's really not useful in in perspective mode. I would have to get a good angle on that. Hold on. There we go. And a very interesting tool already. There we go. I fixed that. But we won't be using that much either, not until a little bit later on. I suppose it makes constructing things a little bit easier, but I wouldn't worry about tweak too much, because we never had it before. We don't really need it now. Magnet as it said. For things like magnet, I don't recall what the shortcut key is. It looks like it's colon or semicolon. To me, it doesn't really matter. So a magnet does what it does, how it sounds. It sort of attracts the points that are closest to it, and doesn't attract the points that are farthest from it. So it's sort of like grabbing, but at the same time it isn't, because you're only grabbing certain segments of it. Oh boy, my nose is all stuffed. Shear, which is a pretty good one, does what its name says. It will shear your object slightly off angle, and all of these are actually honestly useful. They can be used. Rotate, which is the shortcut key for, is Y. This is an important one that you're going to want to know pretty much indefinitely. It's a very important tool, because you need to get different angles on your object, so that you can actually see what it looks like from different angles. So rotate's a very important one. We have access rotate, which is a little bit more in depth on how rotate will work. And it's a little bit, I wouldn't say it's more accurate, but it's, well, I suppose it is, yeah. We have bend. Bend is not a hugely useful one, especially when it comes to 3D objects. It's a bit iffy. Plus, this object does not have very many polygons, so bend doesn't really apply here. But we'll get more into bend when we have to. So I'm just gonna size this down so that we can get our box back, because it's a bit deformed now. So I'm basically gonna show you guys me using all the tools that, well, I know how to use. To try and fix this, because I really royally screwed it up. It's kind of fun. Now I'm going to use a tool we haven't learned, which is that one. There we go, I fixed our box, pretty much. Certainly a lot more normal looking than it was before. So let's take these, scrunch them down. There we go. So we've got our box back. Pretty much. It's a bit derpy looking, but I don't think that that point is supposed to be here. I think we somehow have an extra polygon. That thing's royally screwed up. Let's kill it. However, if my friend who's having an issue later on about it being only in wireframe, if it's in these views, it's supposed to be wireframe. So, because if you have it in wireframe shade, for example, I can see the top of this object, and I can select the top easily now, but I actually can't see anything else. Like, even if I click and drag all over it, I'm not selecting any of the other sides. So, it's better to have this in wireframe. Alright, so let's get into proper modify here. So, let's review what we've learned. T is for move. So as you can see, I can move that around. H is for stretch. And stretch is dependent on what perspective you're in as well. Do not use the perspective mode for it because it's a bit wonky. As you can see, it's already deformed it a bit, which is not always what you want. So H is just stretch. That's stretch, H. That's a shortcut key for stretch. Shift H is for size. So this controls the overall size of it. So it's pretty accurate on its own. Now if you press T and hold down Control, you'll move in only one axis. So for example, I'm actually moving my mouse left and right now, but it's not moving it left and right. It's only moving it up and down because I've locked my axis. So the way you do that is you move in one direction and then you hold down Control. And you do that fast and it will lock it. And it's the same with the other way. So if I'm moving it like that, then I hold down Control, I'm no longer able to actually move it up, and it's just for more accurate movements. That's all. Now let's see, what else do we have? We have our drag tool for our points. We have rotate, and if we hold down Control for that, it'll snap. As you can see, it's a lot more robust. And if we don't hold down Control, we get really smooth. We could get pretty much any angle on it. Everything else we won't have to worry about too much, especially all this. I've never touched this. I'm sure it has a lot of good stuff in it, but I've never touched it so far. Same with most of this. Vortex tool. That sounds cool. I don't know what it is, but it sounds cool. Anyways, let's get into modify or multiply a bit, and we're going to talk about Bevel. Bevel is a really powerful tool. It's one of my favorites. So as you can see, we just went from a simple object to a really complex object that not only looks really cool, but kind of looks temple-y, if you will. And let's see how I did that. So the Bevel tool is B, and basically what the Bevel tool does is it sort of creates another polygon that can be used as like an indent. So if I move my mouse left and right, it'll make it smaller and bigger, kind of like size. And if I move my mouse up and down, it will it'll basically bring it downward or upward. And as you can see, the bevel just creates a new polygon. Now if I right click while I'm still in this stage, I create a new bevel. If I right click again, I create another new bevel. Right click again and I create another new bevel. And basically you can just keep on doing that and you can create some really interesting effects. And this is especially useful for things like spacecraft, if you want to create panels, or if you want to create engines, because this kind of looks like an engine if you ask me. Now I'm just going to go around and I'm going to select all of these sides and let's bevel them and see what we get. So I'll move it inward a bit and then I'll move it outward as well. Cool. So we have that. So let's grab these sides. So bevel is really more so about detail. I'm not sure why it's not in the detail tab, because it really is. It's about creating these really unique details to it. So move it inward. Let's actually move it fully inward. Oh no, not for this one. It's a bit too risky to move it inward. So let's move it outward. Then right click, move it inward. Then right click again and move it back out. Very cool, very complex too, which we haven't even gotten into yet, and it's already still just basic LightWave. And if we press tab, oh, it's a bit weird looking. We'll be getting into that. That's sub patch mode, so it's a bit too complex for now. Let's actually indent these two. So let's bring these in. Like so. Very cool. Very cool indeed. That could even be a pod, maybe, that falls from the sky, or whatever, right? Could be whatever you want. But I just made it out of random, and that's really cool. So that's how bevel works. It creates another polygon that it can move inside, it can move outward, it can be bigger or smaller. Let's not get into rounder because that's pretty complex. Extrude is a very important one. So let's delete that. Let's create a box. Extrude is a pretty important one, yes. So for example, if I and this is what I did earlier with extrude. If I have this, I can hold down Shift E and then extrude it outwards. Now that actually may have been the wrong thing, but I guess we'll find out, won't we? Extrude might be something else that I'm thinking of. Hold on. No, it's Shift E. Right. So that's the basis of extrude. You can do it with a 3D part as well. Bring this upward. But then you start getting this invisible polygons. These are polygons that need to be flipped, like before with the tutorial before. So select them, press F. Select that, press F. Okay, select those two, press F. You always check to make sure you have everything set up properly. Let's see what thicken does. Yeah, it kind of did what I expected it to do. Hold on, I have to see something. Huh. So extrude actually does not attach it. And I never knew that. So it's actually not attached. Well, that kind of sucks. But don't worry, there's a tool for that. We have a tool, and this is an even more important tool called Extend. So press E, you'll see that nothing happens. Now press T, and you can actually move. It requires you to have an edge, a point, or a side selected. So if I have point, I press E, and then move. You'll notice that I've created an extended point. It's a bit weird, but that's how it works. Now if I select that edge that I've just created, and press E, and then move, there we go. I created this weird sided polygon. But it's there. It's kind of cool. So that's what E does. It extends, basically. You can bring that out. And it becomes very important, especially when it comes to either creating mechanical stuff, or when it comes to creating or not really creating, but fixing sub-patched models, you'll be using Extend a lot. So we have that. Let's actually get into Lathe. Why not? Let's get into Lathe. Lathe is kind of complex. Oh, I might as well go over this if we're going to go into Lathe, because it's going to be a lot of polygons. If you select one side and then press close bracket, which is right under the equal sign and right under the backspace sign, and right above enter, it's a little close bracket. It's a square bracket, and it's the close bracket. If you press that, you will select every single polygon. If you don't press it, you need to directly select one face before you press it. So you do that, and it selects everything. You can also hold down right click and do this, and use the lasso tool to select everything, or just to select a part like that. So that's kind of useful to know. So let's create our box. Oh wait, no, I was going to go into Lathe, wasn't I? Lathe does not use a box or any tool like that. Alright, so this is going to be interesting, guys. It's going to be using a very cool tool. Spline Draw, will that work? No, I don't think that'll work. Let's use Sketch. Alright, so there's a secret power to Lathe that some people don't know, but let's do it. Let's say I wanted a cup. I can actually use Lathe to create a cup for me. It's not the best in the world because it will create a lot of polygons, but it is really good. And let's try it out, shall we? So basically, what you have to do is you have to create with the Sketch tool. You have to create what a cup looks like from the side, but you have to create what does it look like from an edge. And what I mean is from that is, like, for example, if I meant a barrel, well, the edge of a barrel looks like this. Basically, that's what the edge of a barrel would look like. That's what we need to do, but instead we're going to do it with a cup. And I want a nice looking cup, so we can get a nice looking cup out of that. Now, where did my sketch go? There it is. Sketch is under Create, under Curves, Sketch, and let's create a nice looking cup. So we're gonna go for a shot glass here. It's kind of ironic now that I'm 18. Kind of works out. I've got a shot glass. Let's fix some of the points here. We can take this point and delete it. No, let's take this point and delete it too. Move it around a bit and make sure that it's what we want. And let's take that, delete it. Basically, we don't want a perfectly, I suppose we could have a perfectly straight edge, but it doesn't really matter. Like, I mean, we could, but, you know, I'm also doing a tutorial here, so I have to chew up time somehow, and I have to at least make it look like I know I'm doing, at least make it look like I know what I'm doing. Let's lower that down a bit because it's a bit. So there we have what the side of a shot glass would look like. So this here, oh, it doesn't work because it's a spline. This here would be the inside, and that would be the bottom of the cup, and this would be the very bottom of the cup and the outside edge. So that's how I've done this. That's how I've taken a look at this. Now if I go into multiply, go to lathe, and then at this very edge here, lathe it, and this is going to get pretty crazy, guys. Boom. Instant shot glass. So this is the power of lathe. It automatically created a spherical shape using that generated shape that I created. It's not the best lathe I've done. It's a bit more like a little barrel with the open off. But you could always take it and turn it transparent and give it a nice little darkish color to it, and there you've got a shot glass. Get some acoustics on it, so that when the light refracts through it, it refracts properly. And the only problem with lathe is that look how many polygons this is. And here we get into actual polygons. This is incredibly complex. If you're new to LightWave, do not deal with so many polygons. This is a lot of polygons, and this is extremely complex. Like for example, if I get rid of the wire here, you can see just how many polygons there are on it. Like this is so ridiculously complex that you would go insane trying to modify it in any way. It would take a real pro to modify something this many polygons. We can actually find out how many polygons it has by pressing W while the polygon tool is selected. We press W, and we have a total of 3,500 polygons just to create this one cup. It's a completely unnecessary amount, but that's simply how the lathe tool works. If we press tab, we go into subpatch mode, and now it's perfectly smooth. And this tool creates complex stuff, and yeah, I don't recommend you using it until you're a lot more professional at this, because if you start doing stuff like that, you're really messing with it. As cool as it looks, you're never really gonna repair that ever. Like even if you take it and you try and move it back into place, it's just, you're never gonna get it perfectly fixed. As you can see, I made an indent actually. The only way you could fix it is Control Z, and you can only go so far back with Control Z, so if you make up too many mistakes, you're kind of screwed. But that's the purpose of the lathe tool. You can actually control how powerful the lathe tool is, but we'll get into that later. At any rate, I hope you guys have started to create a little bit more complex objects. Try and keep it low polygon if you can. So for example, try to keep it as low polygon as possible. If you have lots of polygons, it gets more complex. The more complex it gets, the more difficult everything becomes. So for example, if you guys decide that you want to create a character, I hate to say it, let's not do that. I don't remember how to do it, so I guess I won't. But if you want to create a character, keep it simple like this. Just really basic, because if you try to go with high polygon stuff, you're gonna screw up. You need practice before you can go high polygon. Trust me. I've started going high polygon myself, and my current character for a upcoming series, a monster, he has almost 100,000 polygons in him, and that's not even that much. When we're talking about characters these days, for example, a game character, they have millions of polygons on them. Like, it's not that much. What you think is a lot is not that much. Especially now that we've gotten into tessellation, which is this, converting every polygon into triangles. You know, things have been getting pretty crazy, and you have to sort of catch up with the world before you can start doing the complex stuff now. For example, what tessellation does, in case if any of you are curious, is right now we have a total 22 polygons on this character that we've created. Let's subhatch it, which keeps it the same amount, but instead rounds everything. If we were to tessellate this by holding down Shift and pressing T, what we've done is we've converted everything to triangles, which does cause things to freak out a bit. But what we've done is effectively doubled the amount of polygons we have. So that's all tessellation does. It allows you to create more detail by doubling the amount of polygons. But yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys use some of these new techniques inside Modify and Multiply to create some interesting objects. Shoot for creating a spacecraft. Just do it. Just something like this. I'll even get you guys a bit started on it. Just create something like that, and then let's say grab one side here. Let's call this the front, and let's bring this out. Oh, whoops! I didn't even do that. Shit, I'm screwing around too much now. Bring that out. Bring it out again. I'm not telling you guys how I'm bringing it out, although I am pressing E to extrude it. It's a bit of a lie I just said there. Let's bring that out too. Bring it back a bit, like that. I know it doesn't look like much, but you have to start somewhere. That's the thing about ships, especially. Now, we can't do much with what we've learned, because one thing that we haven't learned is the sort of not subpatch, but subdivide. Yeah, we haven't learned how to do subdivide, which we'll get into later. But let's say this is the front, this is the side. Let's say if I take this, I select the bottom and the sides, extrude it, and then size it out, bring it down, and we have, I suppose I shouldn't have done it that way. If we stretch it sideways and then take it and stretch it down, what we're effectively creating are cargo bays. So as you can see, a little cargo bay on the side. And we could make it more complex if we wanted to. But basically just try and create something. It doesn't matter what, but practice on creating something with the knowledge that we currently have. Next time I'll teach you about subdivide. And basically I'll show you right now. If you hold down Shift and then press D, you get into subdivide menu. Let's stick to facet. Set fractal to 0 and then press OK. You'll notice here nothing has changed, but if you look in here, we have new polygons. See, we've got polygons all over the thing now. Now, of course, like I said, this makes it more complex. So if we're dealing with more complex stuff, you have to be careful. Because the more polygons you have, the more difficult it's going to be to manage everything. So let's bring that out like that. that, let's create our jets on the back here. Like so. Let's create a couple solar panels on the bottom here. And let's just create some interesting indents for no reason. On the frontier, we could, not sure what we can do with that. That would just end up being a texture, I suppose. But there you go. The pretty much the basics for it. We're recording at around 40 minutes, so I believe this will probably be a single episode, as far as I'm concerned. We could even take something like this, something like this, press bevel again. Oh no, I wouldn't recommend that, because it's gonna clip into this, isn't it? Never mind, I'm not gonna do that. Oh, but I could take things like this, and use outside edges, bevel them inward, and push them down. Like that. Nice little details there. So try and create a basic little ship type object, or create something really basic. Don't try and create a character like a human being or a monster or anything like that. Try and create something a lot more generic, like maybe a simple robot. Like, for example, even use pictures as references. For example, I would go to Google Images here, and I would search a bad robot. Try to create this guy. He's pretty... This three-dimensional image of him would be pretty complex, but try to create a simple version of him, right? In the case if you're wondering how to get that curve of his head in Modeler, you need extra polygons. So for example, if I go like this, select this, subdivide it, and create extra polygons. Now what we could try and do is use, we could either try and use magnet. No, that won't work. Shear, maybe? No. Oh, sorry. Oh, that was a pretty bad cough, actually. Maybe I'm getting sick. Select these three sides and bring that down. And as you can see, I gave myself a little bit of a curve. And I do have better ways of doing that, but that's a pretty simple way of doing it, so I want to keep to that. But yeah, trying to create something interesting but basic at the same time. And I hope you guys enjoy your modeling, and we'll be getting into more complex stuff later on. And I hope you guys have a good day modeling. And this has been the Guardian, and I'm out.